What's going on, everybody? Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and we know that you are doing quite well in your NCAA tournament bracket challenge, wherever you're participating, whoever you're participating with. I know that you are in first place because I know a few things. I know that you are a genius, I know that you are wonderful, and I know that you would never come in anything but first place when it comes to competition because you are a Dallas Cowboys fan, so therefore you settle for the best. We hope, we trust that you believe that we are the best here at Blogging the Boys. We strive to make Dallas Cowboys content for you to talk about America's team as much as we possibly can because that is what we all love. That is what we all want to talk about all the time, as noted. So we ask that you subscribe right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Got a lot of fun things in store as the offseason continues to roll on and into the season because soon enough, while it feels like it's forever away, football will be back in our lives. It's like 6,000 months away, but that doesn't really matter because something that is only 1 month away is the 2021 NFL Draft. That's right. Today is Monday, March 29th, 2021, which means a couple of things. Number one, yesterday was March 28th. Number two, tomorrow's March 30th. But number three, that a month from today is April 29th, 2021. That is a Thursday, the third day. Shout out to Joseph Tribbiani. And that is the day, again, that the NFL Draft will begin. This will mark the first round of the 2021 NFL Draft. Rounds 2 and 3 will be on Friday, and then the draft will finish up. It will wrap up on Saturday. You might recall a couple of years ago, this was wild because the draft is a whole weekend affair and there's a lot going on. You're all excited, and we're going to have so much draft coverage for you right here at Blogging the Boys. So make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you check out bloggingtheboys.com. We'll also have podcasts up and running around the clock to discuss all the picks that Dallas is continually making. But a couple of years ago, it was the NFL draft weekend. And this was actually the last, draft because a year ago, the draft took place right as the pandemic was really taking hold. We were all, new to the social distancing sense. But the draft before that in 2019, when the Cowboys did not have a number one draft pick in terms of a first rounder, it was a wild weekend because you will recall it was the weekend that Avengers Endgame released. And it was also the weekend, I don't want to ruin Game of Thrones for anybody who hasn't seen it and anybody is still holding out hope if you are watching maybe the last couple of seasons or something like that. But let's just say it was some big time drama at Winterfell that went down, and all of that happened in the same weekend, which was a lot of stuff to kind of process. But so thankfully this year, all we have going on is the actual NFL draft. The Dallas Cowboys, of course, do hold the 10th overall pick, but the draft underwent a massive change as the weekend began. In fact, before, actually after, goodness gracious, after we put together our last video, the NFL saw a couple of trades that really saw everything go haywire, go wild, go nuts. So let's kind of catch you up in case you somehow did not know. Now, last Friday, which was March 26th, the San Francisco 49ers traded up with the Miami Dolphins to acquire the third overall pick in the upcoming draft. This pick belonged to the Miami Dolphins because it originally belonged to the Houston Texans. Now, this pick was sent by the Houston Texans to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for offensive tackle Laremy Tunsil. A domino effect, among domino effects, which involved, obviously, Laremy Tunsil falling to the Miami Dolphins when he did 5 years ago, the same draft that the Cowboys landed Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. 5 years later, things got really wild involving that particular pick. So the 49ers now hold the third overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. For a moment, the Miami Dolphins held San Francisco's pick, which is the number 12 overall pick in the NFL Draft. They also picked up a third-round pick in 2022. That is the compensatory selection that the 49ers will be getting for the New York Jets hiring Robert Saleh. The Dolphins, get the San Francisco 49ers first-round pick in 2022 and 2023, so things are looking good in South Beach. But the Dolphins no longer have the 12th overall pick because they shipped it over to Philadelphia, the worst team in the NFL. The Dolphins now wanted to be back within striking distance to get themselves an offensive playmaker, so they traded up to number 6, which used to belong to the Eagles. So now the Eagles have number 12, which used to belong to the 49ers. You staying caught up? Good. For what it's worth, the Philadelphia Eagles also picked up the Miami Dolphins first-round pick next year in 2022. So we are all kind of hoping that the Dolphins are awesome because we don't want the Eagles to have an awesome first-round pick in 2022. Keep in mind that the Eagles might have the Indianapolis Colts' first-round pick in 2022 if Carson Wentz meets the minimum requirements for that particular trade, which happened a few months ago. All right. we're all caught up. Everything's good. Everything's crazy. So now we need to take a look at the top 10. We all know, of course, that the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, everything's going to be fine there. Picks number 1, picks number 2, etc. But now the 49ers hold the 3rd overall pick. The Atlanta Falcons still hold the 4th overall pick. No change there. The Cincinnati Bengals hold the 5th overall pick. I know you wanted the Cowboys to tank when they played the Bengals. If they had, maybe the Cowboys would be this high, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Pick number 6 now is the Miami Dolphins again because they traded back up with Philly. 7 belongs to the Detroit Lions. 8, the Carolina Panthers. Number 9, the Denver Broncos. And, of course, number 10, the Dallas Cowboys. For what it's worth, the New York Giants pick at 11 overall, and now the Philadelphia Eagles pick at 12 overall, which means picks numbers 10, 11, and 12, picks that go back to back to back, will be NFC East teams. And check this out. The Dallas Cowboys, while I mentioned a minute ago that you probably wanted them to tank around the time that they beat the Cincinnati Bengals, they did not tank. They strung together a couple of wins, raised team morale a little bit, and still wound up through an overall net process with the highest pick in the NFC East. That's right. The Dallas Cowboys hold the highest pick of all NFC East teams in 2021. A very cool reality and a very important thing to consider because now that the Philadelphia Eagles do not hold the 6th overall pick, they are not going to be within striking distance to get Jamar Chase, the talented wide receiver from LSU, or Kyle Pitts, the talented tight end from the University of Florida. So this is the NFL draft order as it currently lies. Lots of things to be excited about, but also lots of things to figure out. Now, obviously, we appreciate everybody who subscribes right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. If you like me and the work that I do a number of shows across a number of different networks throughout a given week. On Mondays, I do a show called Monday Football Monday, appropriately named. On the SB Nation NFL show, we have a national podcast that covers the NFL as a whole. You can hear myself and Pete Sweeney from SB Nation's Arrowhead Pride on Mondays. And on today's particular episode, on Monday, March 29th, Pete and I went through the new top 10 in the NFL draft order, and we predicted who each team is going to take. So you can go listen to that episode if you want. The SB Nation NFL show is available on all major podcast platforms. But for the purposes of kind of deciding what the Dallas Cowboys should do, we need to take a look at this. So this is based on the mock draft that Pete Sweeney and I put together on the SB Nation NFL show. We have Trevor Lawrence, of course, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. No shock there. He has been the number 1 overall pick for a few years now. In 2021, it is just the Jaguars who are ultimately going to be the team that selects him. At number 2, we have Zach Wilson, the BYU quarterback, heading to the Jets. Now, there's some debate here. Maybe you think it's Justin Fields. Maybe you think they're enamored with somebody else, but we know it's going to be a quarterback. It just kind of depends who. You could kind of shuffle these quarterbacks around if you wanted to, play around with different names, but the point of the matter is the Jets are taking a quarterback. We'll see what happens to Sam Darnold. Certainly a very interesting idea to consider, but Zach Wilson to the Jets, Justin Fields to the 49ers, who now hold the number 3 overall pick in the draft. At pick 4, Pete and I said that it would either be the Atlanta Falcons themselves taking Mac Jones, the quarterback from Alabama, or obviously this is a prime spot for any other team who is in need of a quarterback to trade up and get him, whether it's the New England Patriots, whether it's the Chicago Bears. I mean, there's a number of different options that could ultimately see that particular scenario play out, but it does feel like that's where Mac is going to go, which would mean you have quarterback to get the party started. At pick 5, we have Jamar Chase reuniting with Joe Burrow in the Queen City of Cincinnati. At pick number 6, the Miami Dolphins, who traded up to get there, are going to keep Kyle Pitts in the state of Florida, taking him and adding him to their offense. Sorry, Mike Gesicki. At pick number 7, we see the first offensive tackle go off the board, Penei Sewell from Oregon to the Detroit Lions. I think that makes sense. I think that Dan Campbell wants to build a team from the inside out. Obviously, the trenches is a place where somebody who would eat kneecaps would obviously start off, I guess. At pick number 8, this is a really interesting pivot point of the draft as well. The Carolina Panthers are kind of one of the only teams left without a quarterback so far in the offseason through all the roster acquisition stuff. Trey Lance, two easy dots to connect. And at pick number 9, right before the Dallas Cowboys, we have the Denver Broncos taking Rashawn Slater, the other offensive tackle. Now, this would set up a very interesting scenario for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's take a look at it. I'll give you a minute. Let it all digest. Let it all marinate. It's got to marinate quickly. This can't be like an overnight process here. Our time is limited together, you and me. So looking at this board, looking at the way the first 9 picks went in this particular mock draft, there's a number of mock drafts. Obviously, this is the best. This is the most accurate one, of course. What would you do if you were the Dallas Cowboys? Obviously, Now, we've talked about several times this offseason already about the Cowboys maybe considering an offensive tackle if one were to fall to them. In this particular scenario, neither one of them have. Rashawn Slater's off the board. Penei Sewell's off the board. There is a contingency of Cowboys fans who want to see the team really add to their mantra of scoring points and add Kyle Pitts to the mix. That would be fun. And for what it's worth, if there was, if Kyle Pitts somehow made it through here, it would be tough to turn down. And it would be tough to turn down because of what we mentioned a minute ago. The New York Giants are right behind the Cowboys. The Philadelphia Eagles are right behind them. If you're not going to take Kyle Pitts, you definitely don't want to have to see him 2 times a year, in a particular place of all places within a division rival. So if that were to happen, I think you really heavily have to ultimately consider that, but that's not the case. That's not what we're looking at. And if you will look at this particular scenario, and I think this is very plausible. Again, I think it's more plausible than anything that these are the 9 players taken ahead of when the Cowboys pick. The order you want to put them in, fine, shuffle it around a little bit. But the point is, if you look at these 9 players, there is not a defensive one among them. We've been saying for some time now that the Dallas Cowboys could be in a situation to take the first defensive player off of the board. I mean, take a look at this. Seriously, take a look at this and tell me what doesn't make sense. Maybe you think that the Cincinnati Bengals will take one of the tackles themselves. Fine. Say they take Penei Sewell. I think Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase still go to the Miami Dolphins. I think that, say you want to believe the Lions take one of the other offensive playmakers, so you still get both of them off of the board. You're still left with a tackle. And so in that hypothetical, one of the 2 tackles is still available for the Cowboys. And if that were the case, it'd be hard to turn down Rashawn Slater, Penei Sewell, whichever one did not go to the Cincinnati Bengals. What's an option to consider here? And I wrote something a few weeks ago. It was last weekend when Kyle Fuller joined the Denver Broncos after the Chicago Bears released him. That now that the Denver Broncos have Kyle Fuller in there, we know they're not taking a wide receiver. They went big on wide receiver last year. Maybe Kyle Pitts makes sense, but still the Broncos have Noah Fant, and I mean, that's a harder kind of thing to connect. But I think it's possible. I think it's a little bit less likely now, but I think it's possible that the Denver Broncos could get the defensive party started. The Denver Broncos could be the team to take the guy that I know that you want to take right now, because that's the thing. We have to figure out who should the Cowboys take, because, I mean, right now, again, I'm going to put this back up here so you can see it for yourself one more time. Who should the Cowboys take here? And I know I just kind of invented another hypothetical, but looking at this situation, who should the Cowboys take? Wherever you're watching this video, just scream it out loud. Just scream it as loud as you can. Wake whoever up that's around you. Just scream it out loud. Who should the Cowboys take? Because I think that there are three legitimate options. There are 4 kind of overall options. And number 1 is Patrick Surtain. And that would suck. Or what I should say, I'm kind of thinking in my mind right now, what would suck is that if the Denver Broncos took him. I think that is one real legitimate possibility. The only place I'm worried about Patrick Surtain sliding past, if your dream is for him to have a star on his helmet, is the Denver Broncos. But if the mock draft that we have lived out or played out ultimately does play itself out, then I don't know how you don't turn in the Patrick Surtain card and feel really happy about yourself. He is clearly the best cornerback in the NFL draft in terms of this particular pool. He's CB1. In fact, the pick is now even easier to make now that Caleb Farley's medical situation has become what it has. Yes, you have other options technically, but this is far and away easily the best situation that you can have unfold if you are the Dallas Cowboys. Now, if obviously, Patrick Surtain went to the Denver Broncos, that would mean that one of the tackles is still likely on the board. You take the tackle. This to me is you take the player that the Denver Broncos do not take, because they're taking one of those tackles because there's only going to be one left, or you take Patrick Surtain. But in this particular situation, I think you take Patrick Surtain, and I think you feel really good about it. We've seen this Cowboys team devote an enormous amount of resources to the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, Dak Prescott got his big-time contract. A year ago, they drafted CeeDee Lamb. They gave Amari Cooper a big-time contract. They also extended Blake Jarwin a year ago. 2 years ago now, they extended Ezekiel Elliott. Not necessarily the smartest team constructed move, but still they did do it. They've devoted a number of draft picks to the offensive line. Michael Gallup's a 3rd-round pick. I mean, the lowest quality, player on their offensive line now, if you assume him to be a starter, is Tyler Biadasz, and he's a 4th-round pick. You have to get some legitimate premier talent on your defense if you want to really compete in the here and now if you're the Dallas Cowboys. And Patrick Surtain is somebody that gets you to that level automatically. And so you have a secondary at that point. We've been talking forever about our dream offseason for the Cowboys in the secondary was to bring back one of Chidobe Awuzie or Jordan Lewis. They did that. Jordan Lewis is back. Was to add a veteran corner. They have not done that. That would certainly be nice. And then to ultimately draft Patrick Surtain at the time we talked about Caleb Farley. So there are still a number of veteran corners on the market. Call it Richard Sherman, call it whoever you want. But if the Cowboys still do that, and they can do that even after the draft, into July, into August even, and if they do, if they add him to that mix, proverbial veteran cornerback X, I mean, I'm not like pumped, but I'm fairly pumped, and I am definitely pumped about the future of the Cowboys cornerback position if you tell me that my top two corners are Trayvon Diggs and Patrick Surtain II. I'm super pumped about that. I think that this would be the best situation that could ultimately unfold for the Cowboys. This would be the best possible pick that they could make, but maybe it's not your flavor. Maybe it's not the thing you want to do. The other option, if you want to stick with a cornerback theme, of course, is to take J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. And look, I understand that his stock is flying. I understand that he is on the rise. I understand that there are a lot of people who do view him as the top cornerback in the draft. And there's an argument to be made there. And I think if we were having this conversation at the 16th overall pick, at the 17th overall pick, maybe, even if you want to stretch a little bit, the 20th, or even like the 13th overall pick. And I don't want to get finicky about this, but I mean, it would feel a little bit better. I just have such a hard time turning down Patrick Surtain for J.C. Horn. That's the real hang-up from me. I don't have any qualms or any problems or any issues with who J.C. Horn is as a football player or as a prospect or as a potential cornerback, as a potential star cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys. Zero issues with that. But the problem for me is saying no to somebody else. Like I'm not even hung up on anything to do with J.C. Horn. I will not be able to sleep that night if the Cowboys pass up Patrick Surtain. That's always a dangerous line to walk. And there is, this is not the best example, but if you think about had the Cowboys drafted Kayvon Chason last year instead of CeeDee Lamb, very different scenarios, but had they done that, we would all be watching CeeDee Lamb's career for the rest of our lives and be pissed off about it, right? Because we would know that was a possibility. And we've seen that play itself out in a number of different directions. I mean, I mentioned Zeke a moment ago. We all watched Jalen Ramsey play and think, gosh, I mean, what were the Cowboys doing? We all watch, how many Juan Thornhill, Taylor Rapp, whatever, and it's upsetting and it's frustrating. And those are different things because those were different positions in terms of the players that we all liked and the players the Cowboys ultimately took. These are two players at the same position in J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, but it would be very, very, very tough to pass on Patrick Surtain in the name of J.C. Horn. It would be really incredible if the Cowboys did draft Patrick Surtain because they had gone like 15 years without ever drafting an Alabama player. Bo Scarborough was like the only Alabama player the Cowboys ever drafted forever. It'd be amazing if they spent not only 2 straight draft picks and 2 straight years on Alabama players, but 2 straight, top quality picks. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs was a second-round pick, and this would be the 10th overall pick, so that would be interesting. But I do think there's one more direction in terms of players to explore. I think if we're having the conversation that is you can't take J.C. Horn because it means you're not taking Patrick Surtain, then you definitely can't take Micah Parsons. However, this is worth talking about. It's worth exploring. Should the Cowboys be more panicked about the linebacker position and the state of it and the future of it, then, maybe this makes more sense. And I think we're all panicked about it. Panicked is an aggressive way to put it, but we have yet to see the Cowboys pick up Leighton Vander Esch's 5th-year option. Jalen Smith we've had that conversation. And so the state of your linebacker position is really in flux. Now, we'll see if the team brings back Sean Lee when Mike McCarthy accidentally revealed that Tyrone Crawford was retiring during his press conference last week. He did say that the team was still talking to Sean Lee. The symmetry, the poetry is there. If you want to say goodbye to one Penn State linebacker and bring in another one, Micah Parsons has made it known publicly, for a long time that he wants to play for the Cowboys. If you believe his kind of Twitter clues, I don't know, I would not be like ridiculously upset by this, but again, if we're living under the rules that we have designed for the purposes of this particular conversation, I would be upset. If you're turning down Patrick Surtain, even if you're turning down J.C. Horn for Micah Parsons, What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you wasting all of our time here? So, it is what it is. But there is one more option that we have to consider, one more that isn't necessarily player related, but one that maybe does involve some of these players. And let's take a look one last time at the mock, okay? There are no defensive players taken yet. All defensive players are still on the board for the Dallas Cowboys in this particular mock draft. They have their choice, obviously, of Patrick Surtain. They have their choice of J.C. Horn. They have their choice of Micah Parsons. They have their choice of Christian Barmore. If you want to go down that route later in the draft, they have their choice. All options are seemingly still on the board. Not even seemingly. All options are literally on the board for the Cowboys, which means if you end up in a situation where all options are on the board, then, pull the old, hey, I'm actually taking the extra option that you don't even see and trade back. Would you not want to trade back here? If you can move back, and we're guessing numbers here, but you want to move back 6, 7, even 10 picks, that's a bit too far. But if you want to move back and pick up extra draft capital because now you need it, now you live and operate in a world where you gave your quarterback, deservedly so, a big-time contract. That means that you need as much cheap labor as you can find. How do you find cheap labor? Rookie contracts. So if you can develop a situation where you have all the more draft picks, the Cowboys already have 10 picks in this NFL draft. All right, they have 10. They have 4 in the top 3 rounds. They have 6, or they have 4 in the top 100. They have 6 in the top, or the first 4 rounds. Excuse me. So let's get that right. They have 4 in the top 100. They have 6 in the first 4 rounds of the draft. Sometimes when you're flying, you're moving fast. You got to organize your thoughts a little bit. And so if you can pick up more capital, and ultimately, I don't believe the Cowboys are going to make 10 picks, by the way. They're going to use those picks to trade up in the 6th, the 5th round to get the guys that they really value, the guys that they really like. Or they're going to trade out and do some things next year. But this makes sense. If you want to trade back a couple of spots and still walk away with J.C. Horn, all the power in the world to you. If you are willing to pass on Patrick Surtain in that capacity because you're getting J.C. Horn and whatever Hall X, I'm fine with that. And I think that this mock, and I believe this is a realistic mock, not just because I composed it, but because it makes sense. This is truly the best possible situation for the Dallas Cowboys. It would be awesome if the Cowboys came away with Patrick Surtain. It would be awesome if the Cowboys came away with extra draft capital and J.C. Horn. And maybe you are of the mindset where you say, you know what, RJ? I have seen enough from this Cowboys secondary. I like the idea of extra draft capital, but I don't want to do it. I just want to take Patrick Surtain. Fine, do it. I've got zero problems with that because this improves your defense. We've seen the Cowboys devote an enormous amount of energy to the offense. It's time to devote energy and resources to the defense. We've talked so much about how if you want the Dan Quinn era to be different than the Mike Nolan era, you have to give him legitimate playmakers to work with. Patrick Surtain is one of those playmakers. J.C. Horn is one of those playmakers. Micah Parsons could be one of those playmakers. But ultimately, if you want my full recommendation, what I would do with all options on the table, including trading back, it would be Patrick Surtain. And I would feel really good about it. I would feel really, really, really good about it. I would feel really great about it. In fact, I'll throw the word great out. I would feel great if that was the case. I would also feel great if you subscribed right here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. We do so much work all the time, all year round. What are holidays? What are off days? There are no days off here, all right? There are Dallas Cowboys things to talk about all the time, and we want to do that with you, our friends, our family. So please subscribe again here to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Check out bloggingtheboys.com, and of course, subscribe to the Blogging the Boys podcast network. We are available on all major podcast platforms. It's going to be a fun week. It's going to be an interesting week as we get closer to the 2021 NFL Draft. Again, a month away. Very exciting stuff. So hope you enjoyed and hope you have a great day and hope you have something great for dinner or lunch or breakfast whenever you're watching this. And really, just hope you have the best week ever. You know why? Because you deserve it. We'll see you next time.